messed up. We live in a culture that I think overvalues money and possessions, and with that happening, we end up with a potential clash. Potential clash is between our overvaluing of money and the value that Jesus wants to have in our life and the place that Jesus wants to hold in our lives. And those can bang into each other. And Jesus, 2,000 years ago, was really nervous about that. And so he said things like, you can't serve God and money. And if that was true 2,000 years ago, it seems to me it's even more true today. That threat exists for each and every one of us, that we will try to do that and choose wrongly in that struggle between serving God and serving money. I talked about the fact that we haven't really done all this stewardship ministry all that well in the church in the past. By that I mean we have tended to make it about bills and budgets. And we have tended to tell people in our congregations, you really need to give, because if you don't, we aren't going to get the bills paid. So instead of talking about giving generously out of our relationship with our Lord, we talk more about giving enough to get the bills paid. Because of all of this, because of the cultural stuff that we live in, because of old tapes that play, because of how we've talked about this in the past, being a stewardship leader in a congregation today is just plain hard work. There will be times when you will not want to have the job that you have. There will be times that people will probably accuse you of really only caring about one thing, getting their money. Even though that's simply not the case, that will be the accusation. But it's worth every bit of effort that we put into this stewardship work. And again, for the 10th time at least, to lift up my favorite stewardship verse, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We have this incredible promise for our lives and for the lives of people in our congregation that when we help people see living generously, time, talent, treasure, and more, and embrace that living generously, we have Jesus' promise. But the end result of that will be far greater than getting enough money to pay the bills. The end result of that will be growth in faith and growth in people's relationship with Jesus, which is, after all, what all of us are after. So there, in 4.7 minutes, or whatever it was, that's everything I said yesterday.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be back with all of you this morning and to see some new faces who are just here for the Saturday session. I really don't know how to follow up what Chick has just said, because I think that sums up well what both of us said yesterday, but I'll try to add on just a few things here from a review standpoint. The first thing that I tried to cover yesterday that really dovetails along with what Chick said is that stewardship has way more to do with God than it has to do with us. Talked about how God comes down to us in love, that is the first movement of stewardship. The three movements of stewardship for me are down. The way that God comes down to us, in the way that we look in to see all that God has entrusted to our care, and then looking out to our neighbors in need. It has way more to do with God than it does with our wallet, for sure. To me, stewardship is about being love in action. When I think about stewardship, the image of love comes to mind. That is the first thought for me. I mentioned to folks yesterday that I don't have these old tapes playing in my head about stewardship that so many of us have. In the church where I grew up, stewardship just wasn't talked about. Tithes, offerings, generosity, those were all words that we knew. Stewardship wasn't one. I didn't learn about it until I went to seminary. So for me, I had to learn it afresh. And love is the way that I see it. And stewardship is the way that we not only talk the talk, but walk the walk of love to our neighbor with all that we have. And we discussed the Good Samaritan passage and how the Good Samaritan shows up for the neighbor in need. And how we can see ourselves not only as that Samaritan, but also as the beaten man by the side of the road, the one who is in need of the care of others. It's just as much about being a recipient as it is about being a giver. And I really wish we would spend more time on that in our congregation. But what does it mean to be a recipient of good stewardship? what it means to be on the other side of the gifts that we give. In the second section yesterday, I invited us to shift our ideologies from thinking about what we're giving, what church is, to why. Why church? Why giving? And so if you go around today and you happen to see some folks wearing name tags that have some little script written on it, I realize you probably can't read it unless you get way too close to the person, but hopefully you'll still see kind of the memento of this. We wrote down our whys in 140 characters or less, but nobody counted, right? Nobody counted. Including hashtags for some of us who wanted to be brave. Mine, I don't believe I shared it yesterday, is seeing my community with new eyes and learning how to love our neighbors together. Hashtag homeless in Dakota County. We shared a variety of different why experiences. Mine comes from the church that I just started attending near my house. I decided that instead of driving all the way into downtown Minneapolis for church, I wanted to be in more of a community setting. I started attending a church that's 1.5 miles up the street from me, and I know for sure it's exactly 1.5 miles because I walked to church last week and back, so I know those miles well. And I walked there and I heard a message I hadn't heard before, which is in this wonderful suburb of Minneapolis, we have an issue with homelessness. And if I had not gone to church that Sunday, I would have had no idea that that issue was happening. And it reminded me of what it means to be church together. That church together draws us out into our communities, into the world, and is a place where we can hear about those issues and address them together. A place where we can be love in action, not just with our money, but with our time, talents, and as Chick said, so much more. And I believe that these whys are best told through stories. This is, of course, great advice for an evangelism team, but I think this is also great advice for stewardship teams as well. How can we bring our generosity stories to the forefront? And what Chick and I did at the banquet last night, for those of you who couldn't attend, is we told our generosity stories. And we invited you to share yours as well. We hope you'll continue to do that throughout the day today. So that was my 4.7 minutes. We'll see how we did on that. And now, we get to jump into a topic. I'm going to run back to the first one so you can see what we're covering today. We are going to talk about a topic that I cannot wait to talk to you about. I just cannot wait to talk to you about this. This is probably one of my absolute favorite topics in the whole world, which is stewardship with adults under 40. AKA stewardship with young people, stewardship with people who look a little bit like Grace standing here in front of you today. So I'm just so jazzed to share this with you, even though the fact that it is only 7:30 Central Time, and I keep trying to not remind myself of that. Let me just run back so we can set the stage here. What I'm going to do here is set the stage for how Chick and I got interested in this topic, and then I'm going to invite Chick to come forward, and we're going to share side by side some of our experiences. Even if you were not here yesterday, you may have noticed that there are a few little differences between Chick and I, and maybe beyond just gender. We might even tell you the age difference between us. I'll let Chick share that if he wants to. He's not interested. Not taking debate on that one. So let me set the stage for how this came about. We mentioned a bit yesterday that Chick and I worked together at Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. We worked together at the Center for Stewardship Leaders. One of the first things that we wanted to do when we started working together was to do a little bit of research. We knew that our website needed a bit of work done on it, but we wanted to learn from the people that we were serving. What were they interested in learning more about? How could we upgrade our newsletters? How might we organize our website in the best way that's useful for them? So we decided to do a survey and to go out to do a couple different focus groups in areas around the country. So we did some in the Midwest, some in the South, some in the North, East and West. Just did a couple. And as we were doing these research focus groups, we were being really intentional. Sitting next to one another, trading back and forth questions as we asked people, just to illustrate that we were equal parties at the table. The two of us leading this at the same time. Now, this worked out incredibly well for just about every topic we talked about. We talked about stewardship and worship. We talked about stewardship and creation. Every topic related to stewardship probably we covered in some of those conversations. Probably not everyone, but pretty darn close. When we brought up stewardship with adults under 40, things started to get a little weird in the room. To use an image familiar to people in my generation, and likely a lot of you in this room, it seemed like I put on an invisibility cloak. Suddenly, people could not see me anymore in the room. And Chick and I would be sitting side by side leading these conversations, and we got so many responses. Anxiety, frustration, anger, questioning, everything on the negative emotional scale we probably saw during those conversations. But no one would look me in the eye. Everyone instead would turn their attention, focus on Chick, and generally ask him, Chick, what would you do about stewardship with adults under 40? How does this work for you? And I think, it's my projection, they wanted him to massage those wounds and to play some old tapes for them. And they were nervous about asking the one person in the room that might have something to say about this. And we were so amazed that this was happening, we thought, okay, this has to just be this one place we've been to. But it happened everywhere. Sometimes it even happened with adults under 40. It was so shocking to me. No one wanted to talk to me about this issue. So eventually, I got up a little bit of courage, and I started talking with people about this. I started asking them more questions. What is this really about? Trying to give some responses to the questions that they were asking Chick, even though they didn't invite me. I thought I may as well start in. This really set us on a path to say we want to learn more about adults under 40. And I told Chick, I want to have conversations with people of my age demographic, some older and some younger, around the topic of stewardship. Because I want to be able to bring this message to others. What are these people talking about in terms of stewardship? What should we know about them as we're talking about stewardship with them? What should we be aware of? Now, I want to tell you a couple of different disclaimers before we get started on this conversation, if you'll bear with me. One, I am not some crazy generational theorist thinking that generations tell you all the keys to how this works. But I do think there are some fun facts to offer, and they do give us something. Number two, I am a millennial, we'll define that in a minute. I don't represent every millennial in the room. So just know, you're going to hear the gospel of grace today, but there are many other millennials in the room here, and many other millennials in your communities you can talk to hear their stories. So I encourage you to bear those things in mind as we have this conversation. And last but not least, we could just as easily be doing this topic on stewardship with baby boomers, stewardship with the silent generation. We could do this on a variety of different generations. We just happen to be focusing on the younger ones today. So one of the first things that Chick and I did as we were investigating this topic was that we decided to write something together. And I'm going to invite Chick up to tell a bit of the story about how we got invited to write this piece and a little bit of background on it, and then we'll share from our experiences.